Welcome back to another episode of Just My Baby Daddy podcast. It's your boy AJ.
It's the bougie baby daddy Eli.
And today we have a special guest. We have Mr. Reggie George. You may know him from his brand, Father Figures, which I'm wearing now. And you know I wear a bunch of black-owned businesses on the show, but I've worn this many a times. So it's a pleasure to have you on the show today. Appreciate it.
Nah, I appreciate y'all, fellas. It's an honor to be here, bro.
For sure, man. And we thank you, man. We can't wait to kind of get into it, get your story, get your words of wisdom that you want to share. Let's get
Let's
right
go.
into it.
So we're going to start you off the same way we start off everybody. What does it mean to you to be a father?
Man, it means everything, bro. Like, for me, that's the highest honor that probably I've ever held. You know what I'm saying? And I'm a husband of 20, almost 22 years, man. I'm business owner, entrepreneur for life, man. But I hold no bigger title than father and father figure, man. Like I got my nieces that are older than my girls, my nephews, man. Like I hold fatherhood and being a father figure. I hold it in the highest esteem.
So did you always picture yourself being a father, or is that something that, kind of happened? You graduated into it from boyhood to manhood. Like, what was that like?
Man, I come from a lineage of father figures, man. Like my great grandfather, my grandfather, my father, my uncles. Like, man, that's just something that's synonymous with my family, man. Like, I really have a legacy of fatherhood. You know what I'm saying? Like, my grandfather, who passed maybe 4 years ago, bro, who I've always held him in the honor of in the esteem of a superhero, literally. You know what I'm saying? So I've never really idolized a whole lot of people, man, but my whole life I idolized my grandfather.
Oh, wow. So go ahead, AJ.
So growing up, where did you?
I grew up in man. I'm really a military brat, man. So I kind of grew up everywhere. You know what I'm saying? My father was until I was maybe fifth or sixth grade. We lived overseas in Germany, man. Killeen, Virginia, El Paso, man. So I was born in Little Rock, Arkansas, man. But I'm from, like my homies say, the earth is my turf.
So seeing as though you come from a family where fatherhood is something that seems like it's passed down, where you grew up, was that something that you've seen as well as your friends, or did you realize even then that maybe this is something a little different here?
Nah, bro. Early on, man, I started to really, and coming from a military background, man, you see a lot of present fathers in the household just because the military don't really play that being absent or not being part of the. But outside of that, bro, especially like in Arkansas, or especially like in anybody who was outside of the military setup, you started to really see them gravitate toward the gangs and gravitate toward the criminal life, and then you started to really understand, like even when I got invited to get involved in that stuff, the first thing I thought about, like, man, my pops would kill me, man. Like, I ain't, you know what I'm saying? And but a lot of cats didn't have that accountability, man. So I kind of acknowledged it early on, like, bro, like for me, that's what kept me out of a lot of that nonsense.
Mm. So what were some of the most impactful things that you learned from your grandfather and your father that you kind of took to heart to not only take forward into your fatherhood experiences, but to kind of help shape you into the man that you are now?
Man, I think one of the biggest things that I learned from my father, my grandfather, my uncles was just a sense of accountability and responsibility. Like my father and my grandfather, man, they were no nonsense when it came to excuses. Like, you couldn't just come up with excuses.
Right.
They was really like, it wasn't like I could just say, Pop, I don't feel good. I don't want to go to school today. Like, nah, what you mean you don't feel good? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's one of them deals that whether it was grades, whether it was sports, like, man, what are you accountable for? You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Or what do you want to be responsible for? So even for me as a man and having children, and even in my marriage, bro, like I'm huge on accountability and responsibility. Let's just take responsibility for what's going on, and then let's come up with a solution, man. And
Right.
that's those are two of the biggest things that I picked up, man, from my grandfather and my father.
Got you. And you mentioned being married 22 years.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a long time.
That's a long time, bro.
Look, that's a lifetime and a whole separate experience that we won't get into specifically. But what I want to do is we talk about how your father, your grandfather, how has your wife impacted you as a father? Because since you've grown with her in a sense.
Yeah.
So how has your relationship with her impacted you, and what has it taught you?
Man, it has impacted me tremendously, man, because my wife comes from a single parent household. And for us to grow up, man, and really for me to take on that leadership role or become that entity that she didn't even have growing up, like, man, it's been an adventure from a marital standpoint and from a fathering standpoint, because it's been an education process for both of us. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes it's hard for individuals who didn't grow up with that piece to respect that piece, even if it becomes your husband. You know what I'm saying? Or the father of your kids. It's something that you got to graduate into.
What was the biggest challenge? But the reason I asked that question is because even with my wife, she lost her father when she was younger, like when she was 8, 9 years old. But her grandfather was very impactful. But it's still certain things that we still navigate through from a male involvement with our children and stuff like that. But what was the challenging piece for you, and what were some of the obstacles that y'all had to overcome and still maybe have to overcome today?
Yeah, man, it's for us as men, and especially as husbands, as fathers, man, the biggest thing that we want is honor and respect. So when that entity is not around as a child, or that entity is not there, it's hard to really coach somebody into having a certain amount of respect and honor, because they haven't seen the entity. You know what I'm saying? And that's why I think fatherhood is so important, and curing the disease of absenteeism is huge, man, because it becomes a legacy of absenteeism. So now I don't respect that entity on any level. You know what I'm saying? And that's been a challenge even to this day, bro. Like it's a challenge because I'm the entity. You know what I'm saying? And when you the first generation entity, that's where the respect starts and ends.
Right. No, that definitely
So
makes sense.
I have a question about that, because especially when it comes to women who were raised by single moms, right? I've noticed that your kids are older, but I want you to think back to when your kids were young. What I've noticed is a lot of times they have a problem with the relationship that a father has with their daughter. Did you ever have to deal with that in initial part? Because, they're so used to everything being about them, and they're not
Yeah.
used to seeing what it's really like, that daddy-daughter love. They don't fully get it or understand it because they never had it. And so sometimes it causes a conflict between them. I'm not saying that that's happening to you, but I have noticed that is a thing that happens a lot.
Nah, 100%, man. Just because consciously, I don't think they're aware of it, but subconsciously, man, there's a disdain there. You know what I'm saying? Or we start to honor motherhood more than we honor fatherhood. So those relationships with our kids, they almost become a little bit jealous. I don't know if jealous is the right word, but it's
It is.
kind
We
of
try to be nice and we try not to say
Well,
it. But
hold on. Is it jealousy, or is it a level of competition?
it's
well,
envious and
I don't even
jealousy.
think
It's not
it's
competition if you're by yourself. You can compete
right.
against yourself, because
Well,
we're not
I just
competing
I
for
just
each
think
other.
I just think again it's a lack of it's a lack of experience and education, so I don't know how to feel about that relationship. You know what I'm saying? It's like
Right.
it's almost a certain level of being uncomfortable because of the relationship, because subconsciously you thinking like, man, I kind of envy that relationship.
That's
Oh wow.
that's what it is. They kind of wish that they had that.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and it's hard for us as men to really like you gotta walk on eggshells trying to talk about that, man, because it is a slippery slope, bro. Because you know it's hard to really acknowledge it without acknowledging it,
Yep.
but it's there. It's always there. And again,
Mm-hmm.
that's because of the absenteeism. And when you marry that person or get into a relationship, it's a sensitive subject. So you got to be careful.
Yeah.
So you're one of the few that we talked to that has such a long time in there, and I didn't even know I was going to ask this question, but how do you balance marriage and raising kids?
Man, it's about prioritizing, man. Like one of the biggest things that again I learned from the men in my family, like,
Mm-hmm.
bro, if you don't prioritize marriage, or if you don't prioritize your kids and then prioritize them in order, like a lot of times there comes a space where your kids take priority.
Mm-hmm.
And as the adults, you have to go back and say, you know what, we need to reprioritize, because I know they are important, but
Yep.
they're not as important as this relationship. They're not even here without the relationship.
This is true.
Oh,
That is
that is
true.
very dope.
That is very true.
Yeah.
They ain't get here by themselves.
Nah.
And that's whether you married or not, man. See, a lot of times in them single relationships, we think, motherhood trumps fatherhood, or fatherhood trumps motherhood, and then we make those the most important relationships. They not, man. The relationship between the adults is always more important, because you need to be on the same page when it comes to parenting.
Right. Right. So how do you find that same page? Like, so because I like I like this topic, because it really kind of hits on the communication aspect of your relationship with your child's mother and the father. That's a difference, that the communication styles. But what is one of the things that you've had to learn about yourself to kind of make the balancing act and the prioritizing actually effective?
Man, for me, it's about swallowing that pride, man. We all got egos and we all got pride, man, and a lot of times we got to understand it's not really about being right all the time. You know what I'm saying? Because men, we a lot more logical than women, and I'm not bashing women at all. I know by no means, but
Nah, you talking, not me.
you know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying? Blame it on the father for the move. But you know what I'm saying? A lot of times we thinking a little bit more rational, and but we also have to understand who we dealing with. You know what I'm saying? A lot of times
Right.
we will have kids with somebody and then recognize who we dealing with. It's too late then.
Mm-hmm.
Like you gotta understand and educate yourself, and continually educate yourself on who you dealing with. You know what I'm
That's that
saying?
always have. We always had an argument here. You know who you are until that creature come out out between them legs. That's a whole
There
different
we
woman.
go.
That's
There we go. There we go. Or until them
yeah,
kids get
them
on
kids.
this side of the until them kids get on this side of the earth, now you dealing with a whole different creature.
Yeah, it's a whole different person. It is a
For
whole
sure.
different person. But
For
speaking of the
sure.
kids that on this side of the earth, I know the kids were the inspiration for your brand. So if you want to speak a little bit on how you made a brand out of becoming a father figure, like, and you did it so well. You did it so well. What got you to start it?
Yeah, man, it's definitely my girls, man. My girls are they twins, man, 16 years old, Kennedy and Camden. They definitely 100% of the inspiration. Like I said, I've been a father figure my whole life, man. But
Mm-hmm.
back in 2019, man, my girls, they're in the 11th grade now. So when they were in the 8th grade, my youngest twin, Camden, maybe 3 days before they got out of school, man, a little 15-year-old little boy, they were 13. He stabbed my baby in the head with a pair of scissors, almost killing her in the cafeteria, man. And that thing threw or sent so many shockwaves through me as a father, bro, because the scissors actually punctured her skull, punctured her brain, caused her to have blood clots on her brain, man. My baby's had to have 2 major brain surgeries, bro. She had a stroke because of that. My other baby, man, psychologically, bro, she went through it. They still going through it, man. But the brand was birthed out of, first of all, noticing that this little boy, when we started going to court, man, and luckily enough, man, God kept me from killing this little boy. You know what I'm saying? Let me keep it 100, man. Like,
of course,
the one thing that I give honor to God most about is that up until the time we started having to go to court, I never laid eyes on the little boy. You know what I'm saying? And that's protection, bro, because the brand don't exist. This, me being on y'all podcast, none of that exists, man. If I come in proximity, like my wife saw him at the school, but I got protected enough that, they just said go straight to the hospital because we transporting her to the hospital. But as we started going to court, bro, I started to notice, man, because I wanted a reason not to kill this little boy. I wanted a reason, and I wanted to understand what would make a little boy do that. Like, man, why? It wasn't no fight. They wasn't in a scuffle. It was just on some last day of school type, I want to seem threatening with this pair of scissors. But in the courtroom, man, God kept telling me, like, Reg, look down there. Like, you looking for an answer, look down there and see what's going on. And I only saw mom and sisters and grandmother. And, man, I saw no male representation at all, bro. And, as my baby was in the hospital, man, like I said, she recovering. She had an 8.5-hour brain surgery, bro. She had a stroke during her first surgery. But as she recovering and getting better, man, that's really where the brand started, is this print right here. Man, my wife just came up with it at the crib. And me and my pops and my uncles, we just started wearing it to the courtroom to show representation. You know what I'm saying? Like, never knowing it would become a brand that you see, athletes and actors and rappers, and never knowing that, man. It was just strictly about representation in that courtroom, letting people know that my kids, my daughters, were going to be spoken for.
Right. So speaking on that, the father figure movement itself, and father figure movement is kind of geared towards trying to find a solution,
right?
Trying to find a way to help fix something.
Yeah.
But going through it and speaking and talking to different people, what do you feel is the solution?
Man, I feel the solution is, first of all, we got to change the narrative around fathers and father figures. Like, a lot of times, man, we so enamored by what we see on the media and social media, and they always highlight motherhood. They always highlight, how you battled out of a single parent household and this, that, and the third. Like, man, I honor that. I think single motherhood is to be applauded, but it's not to be made out to look like superheroes in our community, because we have to highlight the fact that absenteeism is what causes a lot of the struggles, especially in our community, man. Like, again, this little boy, I know he don't stab my baby with a pair of scissors. All you can have any man tell you, like, bro, we don't approach young ladies like that, or we don't physically go at women like that. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of times, I think a lot of the issue and a lot of the solution is And that's why the brand is really has become a super passion for me, is because we got to see representation, man. We highlight too often the lack of the father figure, instead of just showing we act like athletes ain't supposed to have that.
But I want to say something to you about this going to the courtroom and things of those times. A thing that's really undervalued is the pressure of a man has to stand strong in the face of adversity to make sure he's there for his family. Like, to hear that you can't, like, I would want to break down just hearing the story about what happened, right? But you can't.
Yeah.
You can't, because while my heart is with my little girl, I still have to take care of my wife.
Yeah.
I still have another child.
Yeah.
How do you maintain your sanity, and what was it that you did to help you get through that? Because when it's there, when everybody else is crying and they need a shoulder to lean on,
Yeah.
it's got to be mine. But I got to have somewhere to go. So how do you do that?
Man, first, man, I'm a God man. You know what I'm saying? First and foremost, man, like you take that thing to God. Like anything that and Miles Monroe always says, man, adversity introduces a man to himself. And the Reggie that you're speaking to now didn't exist prior to that. You know what I'm saying? The Reggie prior to that punched this boy down, man. I probably kill everybody in his family, man. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, but like you saying, when you look around and I see my wife, I see my other baby, I see my baby in the ICU battling, like, man, you have to internally dig in and find who you supposed to be as a man and as a father. Like I tell people all the time, like, bro, as validated as I would have been if I would have went and seek revenge or vengeance, I don't think there's a man out there that wouldn't have said, man, I might not condone it, but I
Don't blame
understand.
you. Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
totally.
But at the end of the day, bro, it would have hurt me 10 times more to not be there for my wife and my kids. You know,
That's real.
my baby wake up and she alert and somebody have to come down to the jailhouse and say, Reg, your baby looking for you. Like, man, I don't,
You're gonna
like,
break
bro,
down.
that's worse than the scissors.
Mm.
You know?
Right.
But and to answer the second part of your question, man, that's where a lot of the movement comes from too, man. Like, bro, I cannot tell you how many texts, how many calls, how many just words of encouragement. Like, man, the brothers, my father, my uncles, like, man, my best friend, man, he lives probably an hour away from the hospital we was in. He works another 30 minutes away from where he lived. Man, my best friend was at the hospital every day, bro.
Oh, wow.
Every day.
Wow.
And
so you definitely had a support system for sure.
100%, bro. 100%.
For sure. So when you're going through something like that, you have one daughter injured, but you have the other daughter that's injured because she's having to deal with it as well from an emotional, from a mental perspective.
Yeah.
And that appears, I don't know, I can't speak for it, you can speak to it, but those are two totally different types of needs to a certain extent. And two separate personalities.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, that almost introduces, like we used to talk about with COVID, a new normal for you for a second. What was that transition, and what was the most important thing for you to tap into to kind of understand how to maneuver and how to kind of bring a sense of stability, a sense of strength, and a sense of, okay, well, we're going to be okay. So let's kind of galvanize and come together. What was that in you that helped you get there?
Man, I think 100%, man, like having a military father and a military background, that thing never lets you build a comfort zone. You know what I'm saying? Like you have to build up a taste for being uncomfortable, and like you're saying, it created a completely new norm. Like, man, me and my wife, bro, my baby was in the hospital for 3 months. We lived at the hospital for 3 months. Like, my truck, it's a hospital here in Dallas, man. They care flighted her about 30 minutes away from where we originally were. Man, my truck was there for a month before my best friend went and moved my truck and took it to the crib. We dug in, like, man, we living at the hospital. So, and even for my other daughter, Kennedy, man, like, you got to think, at 13 years old, for 13 years, they had never done anything separate.
Right.
Not one thing. Bro, you know, I got 5 bedrooms, man, big old crib. My girls still to this day at almost 17 will end up in the same bed every night. Wow. So for her to have to look at her sister, man, bedridden, wheelchair ridden, and this happened, like I said, 2 days before school was out. So my girls cheerlead, they play basketball. Man, my baby had to go to cheer competitions by herself. She had to go to basketball games by herself. She having to sleep at my parents' house, at my sister's house, all these places by herself, while she's still psychologically dealing with having to watch her sister be stabbed, bro. So you definitely, as a man and as a father, you have to tap into that strength that we all talk about and that faith that we all talk about. You know, it's kind of like being in the gym. Until you have to use the muscles, you don't know how strong you are.
That's exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly right. I knew you were going to say that, because we all say, well, we would do, or we would do this, or we would do that. But until you face with that, until you actually have to face it for the people that look to you, it has to be a different thing. It has to be. So what are some of the things that the strategies of moving forward to help with the healing process? Like, what are some of the things that either you learned, experienced, or you know, either currently go through to kind of help them still heal? Like, what is it that you learn?
Man, just like myself, man, I teach my kids, and really even growing up with my wife, man, I'm big on going through that thing instead of trying to go around it. You know what I'm saying? Let's deal with it. Let's go through it so we can get through it. You know what I'm saying? It's one of those deals where if something, I don't care whether it's, you know, man, we still, all 4 of us still have to go back and get some continuing counseling and therapy, because at every phase it's a different wave.
Right.
You know, we thinking, once we get out the hospital, man, and she back walking, and we thinking it's cool. Like, nah, man, now we back having to pass by the school, having to go deal with the legal issues with the school, and having to, like, now we got a whole nother wave of triggers, and we got a whole nother wave. And my girls have had to transfer to a whole different school district, man. We live in a whole different city, all this stuff, man. So it definitely, for me, it's about dealing with things so we can move on in a healthy manner.
Right.
So we don't just say we moved on, moved past it. No, like, we dealt with it. And that's one of the biggest things. Even right now, man, I tell my baby, man, my baby got a hoop and a helmet, and, you know, kids making fun of her and all. I'm like, no, let's deal with it. Let's deal with it now. Like, how did that make you feel? And what do you think about that? And then if she feel like she need to go confront, or not even, you know, not on no fight, but like, man, go say something. Like, you got a right. Like, man, look, nobody knows why. If she knew why you had that helmet on, ain't nobody saying nothing. Go tell her what's going on. Let's deal with it.
Got you. So how overall, and what are you, as far as the male figure, the outlook on life, I would assume, or I would think, kind of changes, and it's certain things like trust, or like confidence of going out, or you know, so many things are affected that I'm assuming, you know what I mean? Like I said, I haven't been there, but I can see it. But
I can see it on your
yeah, for sure. So like how is the outlook right now? How is it or what is it that you're trying to help with, or help instill, or help change, or help navigate? Really, that's really what the thing is right now, is navigate, deal, and then figure out.
Man, for me, I want to create a space, man, where we helping each other when we do have to deal with things like this. Like, man, bro, I got goosebumps, man, probably this big when you said, like, man, people think PTSD is just for people that's going to war or been to prison. You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
bro, I can remember, and this is a true story, man. The first time my baby they got out, they back at school, man, and so they like, Dad, we want to go to such and such birthday party at their crib. Man, me and my wife drop them off, and we go eat at Olive Garden, and I have a full blown panic attack in Olive Garden. I'm talking about full blown, like where, you know, bro, I have to go and walk around Olive Garden.
Wow.
In order to calm down, because I didn't know that was there. Like, man, see, especially as fathers, when somebody steals something, you know, that's one thing. Somebody can steal something and you ain't got to be home. But when somebody robs you of your protective peace, like, man, that thing will empty your cup out, bro. It will empty your, like, I can't be at school with them. I can't be in the cafeteria. So what this little boy did was rob me of my ability to protect my girls. So now in my head, everybody know we done heard the saying anything can happen, but like when anything does happen, now it's almost impossible to talk yourself off that ledge, man. So for me, the movement, the apparel, everything, anytime I speak, man, that's really the space that I'm trying to create for us as fathers and as men, is that let's create some ways and a community that we can pour in each other, and we can give each other that assistance, and we can give each other that encouragement, that when we going through some stuff, man, like, bro, we got to be able to tap into something. Because our wives, even my wife, she get it, but she don't get it. Mm-hmm. My kids, my girls get it, but they don't get it.
So you're talking about the movement, and you're talking about everything that kind of shaped you from that. But with regards to the father figure movement, what are some of the things that you've learned since, you know, the initiation of it? Because like I said, at the end of the day, we're trying to find solutions to problems.
Yeah.
But what are some of the things that you've learned along the way that have impacted you, not only that you were looking for, but in ways that, you know what, I didn't understand that, or I didn't see it because my experience is a little different. I had father figures in my life, but seeing the people that haven't had that, what have you learned or seen?
What I learned more than anything, bro, is exactly what you said, that there is a problem, that there is an issue. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of cats, and especially those who are first generation fathers or first generation father figures, like, when you don't have a space to really admit, like, man, I'm trying, but I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
Yeah.
Or I still got these daddy traumas or these father traumas that I'm dealing with, that I'm actually bringing over here with me, but I don't really have the space. Man, I done had some of my best friends in the world, some cats I went to elementary school with, come and say, like, Reg, I ain't never told nobody this, but I'm still dealing with this, or I'm still, I brought this into my relationship, or I brought this into, you know, because it's a lot of things, and especially in the era, man, I'm 45, bro. And in our era, we grew up with some things. Even if you had an active father, we grew up with some things that are toxic.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Even, you know, just the lack of communication, or the lack of saying I love you, or the lack of affection, or whatever the case may, which made you a man's man back in that day. But take a cat like myself. I got girls now, man. I can't walk around and not be affectionate or not be complimentary or not be understanding or just have this do what I say, not as I do mentality. I can't do it and try to raise young ladies.
Not gonna happen.
You know what I'm saying? So that's really one of the biggest things that I've learned, man, is that there is a problem and there is a need for a space for cats to really just come out and say, like, bro, I need some help.
Right.
It's been conversations that we've had where at the end of it, people are like, well, I haven't told anybody this. And it's kind of weird to me, especially, I mean, it makes me feel good, like, hey, maybe we're doing a good ass job or something. But it's kind of weird. It's like, how can you hold this all in? And while you expressing it to me, I don't even know you, right? So, and I can understand with you telling your story and you having your platform, people are just coming to you, probably just spill. I guess sometimes people just telling me dad stories and like, shit, I can't help. I ain't no doctor or nothing like that. I'm just a dude with kids. Like, I'm a dude with kids that's talking. But like, do you feel any responsibility now with that? Like that people come to you? Do you when people ask you questions and things like that? Because I'm starting to deal with that now. Like people ask me, like, well, what would you do? I'm like, I don't know. I'm literally trying to figure this out. Not only trying to figure it out as I'm living life, we trying to figure out our episode cadence still.
Yeah.
We trying to figure all of it out.
Nah, 100%, man. It is.
So do you feel a responsibility?
It is a level of responsibility and accountability, man, because in order for us to have the platforms, in order for us to try to accomplish what we're trying to accomplish, man, it's also up to us to educate ourselves on how to help people and even if nothing else, become a resource. You know what I'm saying? Like we have a collection and we have dominion over a certain number of men and a certain number of resources that even if I can't help you, man, I know some cats that can put you on game, or some cats that been through the same thing, or some cats who've been in the same space, man. So let me just put us all in the same room, man. And but just like what you're saying though, AJ, we don't realize that we creating a space to give cats an opportunity to say shit that they ain't never said nowhere else.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And that's really what's great about creating a space, is that you're gonna get a lot of cats who just ain't ever had the opportunity to say what they need to say.
That's true. So it sounds like to me, just like we experiences on this show, it sounds like not only is the father figure movement, it seems like it's therapeutic.
Yeah.
It seems like it's counseling for not only the people that you speak with, the individuals that share their stories with you. It also sounds like it helps you as well, because you're hearing them, but you're also able to kind of get off some of the stuff that's on your chest and share that out too, in a way of, okay, well, look, I'm sharing my story. It helps me heal. It helps me be able to be present for the ones that actually need me in my household. So it's like you let off here, but you can kind of go back open and ready to hear them. Is that how you kind of see it as well?
Nah, bro, that's 100% it, bro. Like the movement. We had forums, man. We had a few conferences, even podcasts and social media. It gives me the opportunity to really pour out, but also get out. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a lot of stuff that if it's not amongst men and it's not amongst people who understand what it's like to be a father, or what it's like to have to take on the responsibility of protecting our kids, man. Like if I don't have that space, then I really don't have anybody that can relate to what it's like to be a father or a father figure, or the responsibility of protection. You know what I'm saying, man? That's
right.
That's a huge responsibility, bro.
Right.
Like we always put the emphasis on provision, but protection is a huge responsibility.
That makes a lot of sense. So where do you see the father figure movement and the apparel line? Where do you see it going? Where do you want it to go? What's your vision for? Yes, your overall vision for everything.
Man, I want it to be global, man. I want it to be so impactful that we can tangibly see the change that we're making. You know what I'm saying? Like we can tangibly see somebody who says, I wouldn't have put Father Figure Apparel on last year, but because of what I'm doing now, I can put it on and wear it proudly. You know what I'm saying? Like, or, you know, I always see these cats in this stuff, or I wanted to come to the conference, or I wanted to come and be on the podcast, but I didn't feel like I was doing my job. So
right
now I'm just doing better, man. Or now, you know, those coaches or those uncles or those teachers, man, I get a lot of cats who tell me, like, Reg, I want to get down, man, but I ain't got no kids. Like, man, that's why we call it the father figure movement. Like, bro, you a mentor, you a teacher,
Yep.
you a coach. Like, bro, you touching so many of these kids who don't have father figures, and you have influence over them. Like, man, you as impactful to them as I am to my kids.
But I got one, you know, there's a lot of ways we can ask you. We could go with, you know, recovering from trauma, things like that. But I don't want to go with you. I want to go because you have a business that is booming right now. I want to go with what advice would you give to someone who's trying to balance family while trying to start a new business?
Yeah, man, it's about, like, man, I'm huge on journaling and writing things down. Like, man, it's a lot of people who don't have balance because you're not being intentional about balance. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you tell yourself I'm only gonna give a certain amount of hours to my business, or I'm gonna give a certain amount of hours to whatever I'm trying to do to build that business or generate that business. Like, man, it's we got plenty of time to balance work, business, and fatherhood. It's just that you have to be intentional about um, where you are and when you're there. You know what I'm saying? Like, even if it's just how you start your day. See, there's a lot of cats that just, you know, you might not even want to get up early. You might not want to stay up late. You might, you know, like, man, look, after you done homework or went to a game or whatever, you might have to put in some extended hours. But that does not mean that you can't do both.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to be intentional about prioritizing and organizing what you got going.
Wow. So I got a two part question that we'll wrap up on, because see, you're having such an impact in not only your household, but like you said, you're trying to reach globally, right? So what would you envision, or what do you want your legacy as part of the father figure movement and the father figure to be? And what do you want your legacy to be as a father?
Man, I really, Elijah, it's really the same answer, man. Again, just like with my grandfather, man, I want to have a huge impact on my children from a legacy standpoint, but I also want to have a huge impact on other men, other children, other, you know, just anybody else who really can be impacted by Reggie, can be impacted by the father figure movement, man. So I think in one word, it would just be legacy in both arenas, man. Just because, again, my grandfather, man, again, he was an entrepreneur, man. He was a pillar in the community, but that never caused him to neglect his. And like I said, man, I'm a grandchild.
Right.
You know what I'm saying, bro? I never seen my grandfather neglect his children or his grandchildren while running the business, while making sure my grandmother was good. But that's because he was intentional about both. Like, again, our business, his business that I grew up in, was a family business.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times, a lot of the lessons we got came from that business, or it came from always gathering at my grandparents' house for holidays and whatever else it was, man. But I also still hear the stories of how he impacted so many people in the community, He was a father figure to so many other people, man. And that's what I really want the legacy of Reggie and the legacy of the father figure movement to be.
So, being that we had a great conversation, I'm gonna let you slide with telling me you want your legacy of being a father to be legacy. I'm gonna let you slide on that. Normally, I don't let people slide on.
I'm gonna tell you, when this conversation was over, that boy was about to call me on the phone.
I'm like, but not listen, but you get, yeah. I'm saying he brought it back home. I'm like, you gotta answer my question with the question that I answered you. That was a first. Because everything you said makes so much sense. Because it had me over here. I'm like, hold on, I'm about to fry him for that one. But nah, man, I respect that wholeheartedly for sure.
Well, nah, it is answering it with the answer, but I just wanted to give you the explanation of what I.
Nah, for sure, man. Like I said, we really, really, really appreciate you sitting down, sharing your story, sharing the father figure movement with us. Everybody go out. Tell them where they can go get the apparel.
Man, we on Instagram, Father Figure Apparel on IG, man. The site is f2apparel.store. We on Facebook, the Father Figure Movement, man. Anything Reggie George, but mainly IG, and the site f2apparel.store.
Appreciate it, man. Appreciate it. For sure. For sure. I would definitely be going up. Hopefully we got some 2X's so I can go up there and get me something today.
Nah, I got you 2X. 2X is our most popular size, bro.
Well, then look, I'm getting me a hoodie tonight for sure. Because AJ been talking about it for a while. And like I said, if there's anything that we can do to support, anything that we can do to kind of help spread the message, spread the word, hey, you got our contact information. You got us on speed dial. We can link up and make it happen, man. We appreciate all that you're doing, but
man, I appreciate y'all too, man. We locked in, bro. Let's go to work.
Word up.